Welcome to the Infowars Nightly News. It is Friday, November 14th, 2014, and I'm Leanne McAdoo. Here are tonight's top stories.
Tonight, evidence surfaces that proves the Cadillac tax lie was specifically planned out with Barack Obama's blessing. Then, the KKK threatens Ferguson protesters with lethal force and sweeping amnesty, an impeachable offense. All that plus much more up next on the Infowars Nightly News.
Well, we think it's about time for Obama to check his privilege, his executive privilege, that is. And of course, now that the Republicans have taken over Congress, he is going to have to use his pen and his phone even more so than usual. Now, we warned you about Obama's five-finger death punch that's coming during our live election coverage. We've got sweeping amnesty, Obamacare hikes, and apparently it looks like we're going to be starting a war with Syria any day now. Now, the Obama administration has finally admitted that its original strategy to deal with ISIS just isn't going to work, and ultimately it's about removing Bashar al-Assad from power. Now, this new strategy was formed by Obama's national security team, and it ignores the fact that al-Assad and the Syrian military represent the only tenable opposition to the Islamic State and other Islamist groups. Now, these groups, obviously, they're funded and trained by the United States and its partners, most notably Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Turkey. So just like with Iraq and Libya and others, the evil dictators are going to be taken out, of course, creating a power vacuum. So then a Western-backed democratic government can be set up in its place. Now, we've been telling you that this is what ISIS is all about, a Western-backed front group that's meant to destabilize the region. That's why they had that accidental resupply that fell into the hands of ISIS. But do you want to know just how much of a national security threat ISIS is to America? Just take a look at this picture. On Thursday, the House Armed Services Committee met to discuss the war against the Islamic State. Both Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel and General Martin Dempsey, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, made appearances to testify on U.S. military action against the Islamic State. Despite that, many representatives just didn't stick around for the entire hearing. Must have been cocktail hour. So this is how much Congress cares about what we're going to do about the Islamic State, because it's just this huge threat. The only thing that's probably going for Obama right now is that the Republicans do control Congress. So, of course, he might not have to convince them to go to war under false pretenses. But let's take a look at what the old hope and change Obama of yesteryear thought about the use of executive privilege.
The biggest problems that we're facing right now have to do with George Bush trying to bring more and more power into the executive branch and not go through Congress at all. And that's what I intend to reverse when I'm President of the United States of America. There are enough laws on the books by Congress that are very clear in terms of how we have to enforce our immigration system. I know some people want me to bypass Congress and change the laws on my own.
So an excellent mashup there by the Washington Free Beacon. But my, how things have changed. Now Obama is set to pass sweeping amnesty. Sources are saying it could happen as early as next week. Of course, perfectly timed with the grand jury's decision in the Michael Brown case, right? Can't let a good crisis go to waste now, can we? Now, Obama's amnesty is rumored to include not only dreamers, but their parents. This means that upwards of 4.5 million illegal immigrant adults with U.S.-born children can be allowed to stay. And this, of course, is in addition to countless millions. Now, no word yet on how this is going to hurt our economy or how we're actually going to be able to sustain all of this. But on last night's Fox News Kelly File, Charles Krauthammer said that amnesty via executive order is an impeachable offense. He blamed the supine Congress that's been unresponsive at other grabs of executive power, like Obama unilaterally changing Obamacare about 30 times after it had already passed. So we'll just have to wait and see if there's going to be any more power grabs. That's thrown to that clip. I think I put the time down for you.
This idea of prosecutorial discretion is really a travesty. It is intended for extreme cases where it's unusual incident, unusual circumstances, and you say, okay, we're going to give this person a pass. It was never intended to abolish a whole class of people subject to a law and to essentially abolish whole sections of a law. And that's exactly what's happening here.
But Obama doesn't care that we're a nation of laws. He'll just rewrite them however he sees fit. And that's why the next sucker punch that's coming to America is going to be this big bundle of lies that is Obamacare. Now, rates for this year are supposed to be announced tomorrow, of course, a Saturday and post-election, so conveniently. So we'll be feeling those effects of the death punch here probably starting in 2015. But even though most mainstream media outlets are not covering this, we will, of course. Dems are quickly distancing themselves from this man. But here's another one of Obamacare architect Jonathan Gruber's embarrassing admissions. Now, on June 13th, 2012, Gruber was interviewed by Frontline. He told them that the Cadillac tax issue was addressed in 2009. Obama, who was in the room, knew it was going to be a problem, and they all agreed to lie about it.
Lack of transparency is a huge political advantage.
How in the world can this be HIPAA compliant? Which HIPAA is designed to protect the patient's privacy, and this explicitly says in order to continue you have to accept this condition that you have no privacy or no reasonable expectation of privacy.
3 different people were given access to her account, her address, and her social security number.
And John Kerry said, no, we're going to tax your health insurance. We're going to tax those evil insurance companies. We're going to impose a tax that if they sell health insurance that's too expensive, we're going to tax them. And conveniently, the tax rate will happen to be the marginal tax rate under the income tax code. So basically, it's the same thing. We just tax the insurance companies. They pass it on higher prices. That offsets the tax break we get. It ends up being the same thing. It's a very clever, basic exploitation of the lack of economic understanding of the American voter.
Well, first off, the bill has 10 years of tax increases, about $500 billion, with 10 years of Medicare cuts, about $500 billion, to pay for 6 years of spending.
We will keep this promise to the American people. If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor, period.
But for the average person, many of folks who don't have health insurance initially, they're going to have to make some choices, and they might end up having to switch doctors, in part because they're saving money.
The Supreme Court is going to take that case, and the question is, are they going to stick to the way it was written, or are they going to rewrite it?
That the interesting thing about the bill, all 2,000 pages of it, it's a gigantic blank check.
Their insurance is stronger, better, more secure than it was before.
Premiums go up. Employers not going to want to pay those premiums. They're going to pass on as much as possible to the employee.
We said, well, that's pretty much the same thing. Why does it matter? I said, you'll see. And they were both in that passed. The American voters are too stupid to understand the difference. The American voters are too stupid to understand the difference.
It's real cost control that we know it'll work. Go after this. Now, the problem is it's a political nightmare. And people say, no, you can't tax my benefits. It feels like. So what we did a lot in that room was think about, how could we make this work? And Obama's like, he's really a realistic guy. He's like, look, I can't just do this. He said, it's just not going to happen politically. The bill will not pass. How do we manage to get there through phase-ins and other things? And we talked about it. And he was just very interested in that topic. And once again, that ultimately became the genesis of what's called the Cadillac tax in the healthcare bill, which I think is one of the most important and bravest parts of the healthcare law, and doesn't get nearly enough credit.
Lack of transparency is a huge political advantage. And basically, call it the stupidity of the American voter or whatever. But basically, that was really, really critical to getting the thing to pass.
Now, the White House reached out to left-wing reporters to deny that Gruber had a role, saying he didn't work at the White House. Very nice play on words there. But it's already been reported that Gruber was paid around $400,000 for his work on the bill, and White House logs show him in a meeting with the president for 4 hours. So this story is really no longer about Jonathan Gruber. It's about the deliberate lie that the president used to pass this monstrosity of a healthcare law. So what's the big deal with this law? Why do they need for the stupid American public to have no idea what was in this in order for it to pass? Well, here are a few things that the White House doesn't want you to know about Obamacare. And this is also, of course, why the president kept changing the law and why things have been pushed back until after the election. We can expect huge deficits and new taxes in order to cover the $1.4 trillion Obamacare costs that are going to happen over the next decade. Obamacare has added more than 20 new taxes, totaling over $500 billion. Obamacare also includes 159 new boards and agencies to restrict and govern your health care choices. More Orwellian government overreach. And of course, penalties will rise. The individual mandate Currently, you can pay either $95 or 1% of your income, whatever is higher, for this year. And then next year, that is set to triple. And people who have cheaper versions of Obamacare plans are going to be seeing some serious rate hikes. And the employer mandate will take effect. And of course, as we've reported, this mandate is going to lead to fewer full-time employees being hired. So, of course, add all this to the millions of illegal immigrants that are being granted amnesty and thereby qualifying them for Obamacare and, of course, the expanded Medicaid program, which is, of course, going to be covered by the taxpayer. And we really think with all of this, it is about time for Obama to check his privilege. Now, another surprise that is making its way through the Senate this week is a so-called NSA reform bill. It was written by Democratic Senator Patrick Leahy, and it's supported by Ted Cruz. Now, the bill purports to rein in NSA's ability to monitor the communications of Americans. However, Senator Rand Paul says it's too weak, and he notes that it will, in fact, extend the sunset clause on the Patriot Act, which is the very legislation under which the NSA has justified mass domestic spying. Now, Paul says that he's going to oppose the bill unless the Patriot Act provision is removed and the reforms strengthened to properly restrict the NSA's collecting and carrying out this bulk collection of Americans' phone records. Now, we all know how Paul feels about drones, but how does he feel about the Justice Department's use of secret cell phone dragnet surveillance? Now, this is a program that's been in operation since 2007 by the U.S. Marshals Service, and it uses Cessna aircraft with devices that emulate cell phone towers. They're flown out of 5 metropolitan airports, and this gives the planes the ability to cover most of the United States. Now, the Wall Street Journal report says that the program is intended to track the movement of suspected drug dealers. In the process, of course, however, data on thousands of people that are not under investigation or subject to court wiretapping warrants is collected. So basically, these planes trick your phone into connecting with their strong signal, and they just sweep up all of your data. So much for that Fourth Amendment. But maybe they're going to be able to do away with all of these tracking devices soon to track all the evildoers, right? Los Angeles police are already employing pre-crime tools to know when the bad guys are likely to strike. Now, they're using a program dubbed Laser for its ability to zero in on offenders and hotspots, and it's one of many newer law enforcement tools that use data tracking and collection, such as license plate scanners and cell phone trackers, often with little public knowledge or regulation. Privacy advocates say Laser isn't transparent, has no clear oversight, and unjustly focuses on keeping ex-convicts under suspicion even though they've served their time. Laser also uses Palantir technology to speed up the process of building a dossier on criminals. And as we've reported, Palantir data crunches the way that all of us use technology to look into you. So let's see if that is something that's been really dealt with in this new supposed NSA regulating bill that's being passed through the Senate, trying to be rushed through the Senate while there's all this other chaos going on no one really has the time to pay attention to. But, you know, maybe since they're doing all of this, we can do away with the TSA. Now that they're working with pre-crime, we have no use for the contrived security theater that is the TSA, right?
You expect the person sitting next to you on a flight has been thoroughly screened like you have.
Yes, but CBS 2 has uncovered that's not always the case.
It's hard to believe in post-9/11 New York that travelers could get on an airplane without the security rituals many have come to trust.
Security rituals we have come to trust? We've been calling it security theater for a long time, but I think ritual actually captures it better because it is a kind of religion of the state. And it requires the adherents to have a kind of childlike faith in the omnipotence of the state. Think about the security ritual. We come before our masters who treat us as guilty. To get absolution from our masters, we submit to them. We allow them to humiliate and to degrade us. Some of us will be singled out for additional humiliation as a lesson to the rest as to who's in authority. And if we submit, we are blessed with a temporary indulgence to proceed on our pilgrimage. Forgive me, I have scanned. The government wants you to view them as God. To do that, they attempt to reproduce the very attributes of God. Government wants you to see it as omniscient, knowing everything about you. omnipresent. Its constant presence on the media, cameras watching you everywhere, on your phone, on your computer, and as omnipotent, presenting itself as all-powerful and irresistible. This is why the police are becoming increasingly brutal and publicly getting away with it. And the true believers in government love the feeling of security their religious devotion gives them. And they're incensed that while they've been fingerprinted, investigated, and paid an $85 fee to get special privileges, others who haven't paid their dues are being led into the line.
They just let everybody into the line.
And why? Because it's convenient for the TSA. Remember that first Thanksgiving after they put in the naked scanners, afraid that protesters would make the government look weak by clogging the system in protest? The TSA just turned off the scanners, turned off the security on the busiest travel day of the year. And that's what they're doing now as they feel like it with the pre-check program.
Passengers without background checks whisked through the same lines reserved for pre-screened travelers, members of the TSA's pre-check program.
And the true believers of government are incensed at the lack of privilege. But here's the real truth about their security rituals. As John Corbett challenged their unconstitutional molestations in court, unredacted TSA documents were posted by the government mistakenly on pacer.gov as part of the lawsuit. At exactly the same time they were threatening to turn the state of Texas into a no-fly zone in 2011 because Texas legislators were going to stop their unwarranted sexual molestation, the TSA admitted that there was no threat to airports or to airplanes. Yet they were willing to turn Texas into a no-fly zone to maintain their security rituals. Now, if the mainstream media reported that, it would really destroy the sheeple's faith in
the security rituals many have come to trust.
For Infowars Nightly News, I'm David Knight.
Introducing the first proprietary oxygen-based intestinal cleanser, OxyPowder, backed by FDA-approved Phase 1, 2, and 3 clinical trials. All the toxins from the air, the food, the water, ultimately ends up in the gut or affects the gut. Take your health into your own hands and start cleansing your body today with OxyPowder. Secure your OxyPowder today at InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com.
The globalist social engineers are not just targeting us with propaganda. They are manipulating our genetics. We are being targeted at every level by estrogen mimickers that lower our testosterone and other hormones and natural compounds that the body needs. After consulting top doctors, nutritionists, pharmacists, and others, we have developed what I believe is the ultimate non-GMO organic super male vitality formula sourced from powerful organic herbs and then concentrated for maximum potency. Super male vitality was developed to activate your body's own natural processes instead of using synthetic chemicals. Super Male Vitality by InfoWars Life is so powerful that I only take half the recommended dose. For a limited time, we are offering 15% off Super Male Vitality at InfoWarsLife.com to introduce you to this powerful supplement. Visit InfoWarsLife.com today to secure your Super Male Vitality. InfoWarsLife.com.
Sources are saying that Obama is set to announce his 10-point plan for executive amnesty as early as next week. That's right, the lame duck president is going to bypass Congress once again to pass sweeping immigration reform. This includes suspending deportations for millions and allowing not only dreamers but their parents to have access to jobs, health care, all of these things. Now, that last thing with the parents means it could allow an additional 4.5 million illegal immigrant adults with U.S.-born children to stay. Now, obviously, this is going to mean competition for jobs, but also massive expansion of Medicaid, paid for, of course, by you, the taxpayer. Now, one of the most costly elements of Obamacare has been its massive expansion of Medicaid, which is a state-run health insurance program intended to cover poor families. Now, a new study by the Center for Immigration Studies has found that from 2011 to 2013, when Obamacare was really just rolling out, 42% of all new Medicaid enrollees were immigrants. Because illegal immigrants will typically have less money and are less likely to have insurance, we're going to see a surge of Medicaid spending as signups for free health care increase. Now, we've told you, we've been warning all along, this isn't about immigration reform, but it's about politics, and it's about transforming America into a welfare state. Obamacare is, and this sweeping amnesty will be the biggest expansion of a welfare state in our nation's history. Couple this, of course, with the fact that Obamacare rates are coming out over this weekend, and we have a feeling that a lot of people are going to be really upset. Or will they? Because something else that sources are saying is supposed to be announced any day now, the grand jury decision in the Michael Brown case. Obviously, tensions will be very high. Police there in Missouri say they are planning for the worst. So you can expect to see the president announce his sweeping amnesty while all of this is going on. He is going to fundamentally transform America under the cover of the aftermath of this grand jury decision. That's what's going to happen. Now, tensions have been high since unarmed teen Brown was shot by police officer Darren Wilson. The whole world was watching as Ferguson, Missouri descended into chaos under a militarized police. Now, we've reported that police in both Missouri and now Atlanta, Georgia, are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on riot gear in preparations for what's going to be taking place there. Sources that are telling us it could be released as early as tomorrow at dawn, possibly Monday. Now, protesters in Clayton, Missouri are training to shut down the town in the aftermath of this grand jury decision. And this was during a meeting last night in South St. Louis. The demonstrators agreed that they would want to hurt Clayton economically by blocking traffic and occupying other public spaces on the next working day after the announcement is made. Now, as you can see from this video, the people there are of all racial backgrounds in this meeting. All of these people there are of all different races, are working together to peacefully protest and to organize and to figure out how they're going to handle this decision when it is announced. So surely these are not the people that are calling to kill all white people. When did this become a racial thing? The whole world had the support there for the people in Ferguson. Now you got the KKK crawling out from whatever rock they live under, basically threatening to use lethal force against protesters who say that they have threatened police officers and their families. So this is absolutely ridiculous. Now we can see from the video that we just played, or just from our own staff who was there in Ferguson covering these protests, it wasn't a race issue per se, but more about the abuse suffered under police, which something any race can attest to. Now, the world was watching as the police state was rising around us. It was highly evident there. It was all about the militarized police. But now it has been transformed into a race issue. Now we got the KKK, we got the Black Panthers out there, all these groups trying to divide people who globally had united. And that's what they can't have. They can't have people coming together and overlooking their differences to fight against their real oppressors. No, the agent provocateur has got to move in and get everybody fighting amongst themselves. So our reporters are going to be in Ferguson covering everything that is going to happen after this grand jury decision is released. Definitely stay tuned to Infowars.com. We'll keep you updated on that as it comes. The guys are also going to be live streaming from Ferguson, Missouri. They're leaving tonight and are going to be there indefinitely. So we'll be giving you all of the updates. But hopefully we're going to see people like these peaceful protesters that we saw in the video organizing and working together to fight against the real enemy. Now, coming up, former West Coast drug kingpin Rick Ross tells his monumental story about the influx of cocaine into the neighborhoods of Los Angeles and, of course, the fearless work of Gary Webb and his exposing the fact that the government was the main supplier and distributor.
Jakari Jackson, Joe Biggs at the InfoWars Command Center. We're about to pack up. We have our gear ready, heading back to Ferguson, Missouri. This is going to be my second tour. Joe, this is going to be your third. Yeah. We've seen a lot of stuff happen in Ferguson. We expect to hear what's going to happen with the officer in the very near future. Could be in the next couple of days. So we plan to have boots on the ground when that happens.
Yeah, we also got wind that the new Black Panthers are going to be bringing AK-47s. Now we have reports that the KKK will be, they're threatening to use violence if civil disobedience erupts in Ferguson. So it should make for a very interesting time. We'll be there documenting it all, wearing our infidel body armor that we've been given to go on this trip with. So thanks, guys, for that. Other than that, though, stay tuned for more reports. We'll be tweeting out stuff as it happens, putting up stuff as well on Instagram at our Infowars Instagram account, and look for our videos on YouTube and Infowars.com.
So stay tuned for more reports. Jakari Jackson, Joe Biggs, heading to Ferguson, Missouri.
Another major health threat, this one in Toledo, Ohio, where everybody in the entire city has been told not to drink the water.
Ohio's governor declaring a state of emergency.
Did you know that the average person uses about 80 to 100 gallons of water at home every single day? If there's a water emergency, will you be prepared?
Panicked residents forming long lines throughout the day. We're here at a supermarket in Toledo. You can see the shelves empty where water once was.
To stay safe and healthy during a crisis, you must have access to safe, clean water. Water which will not be available at your local grocery store.
There's a mad dash on right now to stock up on supplies.
The ProPure Pro 1 G2.0 water filtration system is a must-have for every modern, independently minded household. Protect your family's safety during an emergency. Go to InfoWarsStore.com today to purchase your ProPure Pro 1 G2.0 water filtration system or call 1-888-253-3139.
Hi, I'm Dr. Edward Group. Today I'd like to talk about the war on women. You've experienced and heard about the benefits of super male vitality. Now, the new formula has arrived. Introducing the new Super Female Vitality. I have specifically designed this formula to help the body naturally regulate itself without the use of artificial hormones. Key ingredients chosen from the highest quality sources. Each of these ingredients works synergistically with the female body in order to maximize overall vitality. You've heard the reviews and the feedback on how the original Super Male Vitality has revitalized relationships. Now, both the man and the woman can have the revitalization in their own bodies with Super Male Vitality and Super Female Vitality. Secure your Super Female Vitality today from our limited stock at InfoWarsLife.com.
Freeway Rick Ross. He was sentenced to life imprisonment after being convicted of trying to purchase more than 100 kilograms of cocaine from a federal agent. Ross became the subject of controversy later that year when a series of articles by journalist Gary Webb and the San Jose Mercury brought to light a connection between one of Ross's cocaine sources and the CIA as part of the Iran-Contra scandal. His sentencing was later reduced to less than 20 years and released in September 2009. He's finally off the probation, the harassment, all of it. Back when this all first came out, people didn't believe the CIA was bringing drugs in.
I didn't believe it. It wasn't until the CIA themselves told me that they were involved. I was born here in Texas, Tyler. My mom decided that she wanted to try Los Angeles, give us an opportunity to have more than what she had. She was a maid here in Tyler, so she moved to L.A. I moved in during the Watts riot. So I go to school and you know, trying to be like any other normal kid, you know, want to be a police officer, a firefighter, or airplane pilot. Started playing tennis in high school, you know, did pretty good, made All-City, was offered scholarships, but I couldn't read or write. So I found myself back in the streets in South Central Los Angeles. Couldn't get a job, you know, even though I was a very hard worker. Any number of things, just anything that I could do to start making a living, I was willing to do it. Before I started selling cocaine, you know, they started coming out with movies like Superfly and almost like priming you up for this lifestyle that you're about to get into. So when my friend comes and shows me cocaine, I'm interested.
Rock and roll, the drug culture, the CIA delivered the first suitcases of LSD. White kids weren't smoking marijuana. They delivered it. I mean, it's incredible. They primed the whole deal.
They get your mind ready so that when you get the opportunity that you're interested in.
It's called predictive programming. Go ahead. I'm sorry. It's just what you're saying is absolutely right.
So when my friend comes and he shows me this stuff, never seen it before. It was yellowish white. And I'm like, well, I thought cocaine was supposed to be white. He's like, no, man, this is it. So he introduces it to me. He gives me a little bit, like $50 worth. He said, go and see what you can do with it. So I go around the neighborhood and I'm asking everybody. Nobody knows what it is. I mean, I'm going all over South Central LA. Finally, I run into a guy. He was a pimp. And he says, let me see it. And he takes it and he cooks it up and he says, oh, yeah, it's pretty good stuff. And that's how I got started selling cocaine. And it went from there to this one person would buy from me and then another one would come and he would introduce me to somebody else until up, you know, some days I'm making $3 million a day.
So you got in on the ground floor of it? Yeah,
absolutely. Totally ground. So I desperately want to do something now. I need to make some money somewhere. So when this opportunity came, you know, I thought that it was a blessing from God. You know, I started off just helping Mike who was my friend. You know, I'd make the money for him, give him all the money, and pretty soon I know the business. In my community, nobody knew what cocaine was.
Yeah, it was a rich white guy drug.
When I started selling cocaine, that's how I felt about cocaine, that it was another one of those things that they said, no, this is for white people and you guys can't have it. So I felt like I was bringing cocaine to my community to give us something.
But the CIA said, oh, you blacks want it? We're going to make something special for you. Here's how you make crack.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell the story. Did you ever use? Why were you so successful?
I did start using for a short time. You know, I got up to a point to where I probably had about $8,000 or $9,000. I thought I was rich. So, you know, when you're rich, you start experimenting, you know, with the drugs. And I looked up, all my money was gone. So I immediately quit using. You know, I went back and regrouped. You know, I learned that from tennis. When you're doing something wrong, you go back and you figure out what you're doing wrong. So I figured out that I couldn't use anymore. So I stopped using, and I went on to get rich. I started seeing the effects that cocaine was having inside of my community. And it wasn't the effects that I initially thought that it was going to have. You know, I started seeing people pushing baskets. I started seeing women walking the streets and women doing anything to get high. And I started to rethink my position. I threw my hands up. I said, you know what? I'm through with the cocaine business. I got enough money. I got more money now than I ever thought that I would have in my life. I got businesses. So I walked away. Government came back and indicted me for the things that I'd already done. Went to prison. Did 5 years in prison. Immediately after I got out, they had Danilo Blandon started to call me. And his goal was to get me back inside of drugs, but I didn't want to go back. I was trying to go straight. He hounded me for like 6 months to introduce him to one of my friends. Once I made the introduction, my friend handed him a bag of money. The cops swooped in, arrested all of us, and they got me for brokering the deal, for making the introduction, saying that I knew that they were going to be doing a drug deal, and for that reason that I aided and abetted the crime. Doing that crime, they gave me a life sentence. While I was sitting in jail doing this life sentence, fighting my case, I was approached by a reporter, Gary Webb. Well, Gary came down and he saw me. He started talking about that I was in something bigger than, you know, what I thought I was. But, you know, also, too, Alex, that there were some cops on my case. They called themselves the Freeway Task Force. And those cops were robbing and stealing and, you know, they let the dog bite me while I was handcuffed. They got indicted as well. They was taking the drugs from one person, planting them on another person and selling them to this person and just a criminal enterprise. I mean, the whole war on drugs is just like one big hoax of one person benefiting this way and another one benefiting that way. But at the end of the day, guys like myself get caught in the middle. I believe that we're the ones who's paying the biggest price. Not necessarily myself, because I knew I was selling drugs, and I knew that I shouldn't have been selling drugs after a period of time. Once everything came out and I interviewed with the CIA, you know, the CIA came down to my jail cell.
Webb talked about how he got threatened out in the hall, threatened to kill him and stuff. They didn't just threaten to kill his kids. I mean, the feds themselves that were there, not just the CIA, they were basically all in on it. It's
the DA, I mean, they sandbagged us during trial. The court has a thing where they call a pre-trial hearing, where the informant is supposed to come to like a little room. I couldn't be there, but my lawyer was supposed to be there, and Gary was supposed to be there. Well, anyway, Blandon comes to this hearing, and when they get in the room and my lawyer wants to ask him some questions, and the guy said, everything that I got to say, I'm going to say during trial. So we don't know what this guy is going to say. All the information that Gary has, we don't have this information, and Gary's not giving it to us. He didn't give us this information at first because Gary knew I had the relationship with LA Times. So I felt that Gary was worried about me leaking his information to Jesse Katz at LA Times, because, you know, me and Jesse Katz still had a relationship where we talk once in a while. So Gary didn't give it to us. And he gets up from the trial table and he goes and he talks to Blandon, and then he goes back and he asks Gary, because Gary's feeding him like little bits of pieces.
And that was smart. That way the LA Times, now admitted, run by the CIA, the editor CIA, trying to cover all this up. You didn't know that. He could only ask it while it was happening live, so he would get the intel, and they couldn't spin it.
You know, they tried to say that I told Gary how to put it together. You know they said that, right?
Yes.
They did. Oh, Rick Ross dreamed this all up and put this together and fed it to Gary and got Gary to buy into it. But I didn't know none of this. They gave me more credit than I deserved. It baffles me that people don't know this. I'm like, the CIA admitted it. They got a report. You can go to their website, and the report is on their website, and people don't know it. We in court, and Gary's asking my lawyer this, and then the judge recognized what's going on, and she was like, well, why you keep talking to this reporter? Why are you running back and forth to him in the courtroom? I want you to stand here and do this. We're not on a fishing expedition, because, you know, Gary was asking about certain names, Enrique Bermudez, and then Blandon talks about, well, my boss goes on a fishing trip with George Bush, and when they come back, they say the ends justify the means. I'm still learning what's going on. So then eventually we finish trial. They give me the life sentence, and couple months later, Gary's story come out. Gary sends me a copy. I get a copy the day before it comes out. I call Gary on the phone, and then we start to talk, and he starts to tell me, about the CIA being involved, about the Contras. Because, I really didn't know what the Contras was. Definitely did not know that they were backed by the CIA and Ronald Reagan and George Bush. Had no clue that they was backed by that.
It's come out Ronald Reagan, not defending him. He didn't know. It was George Herbert Walker Bush running all that as well, keeping it from him. So if the president didn't know, Rick, you can't blame you for not knowing.
When it comes out, Gary runs it down to me. He starts to tell me, and I'm like, oh, this guy, Gary, he's out there. A couple of days later, the OIG is at my cell, the CIA is at my cell, Congresswoman Maxine Waters is there.
You had a chance once it came out that it had been going on to throw Gary Webb under the bus. You wouldn't do it.
Oh no, I respect what Gary does, what he did, and even.
Well, you're right. He's still alive. I mean, he's living on through his
through his story. Absolutely. Hey, it's his spirit that people have to respect. I mean, this guy stood up for justice. Yeah, he told me he was going to keep going, that he was going to get to the bottom of it, and that he wasn't going to stop until he was done with it.
And of course, he was never discredited. That's why they had to kill him, because they tried to kill him in the media, and then that didn't work, so they just killed him.
Well, the internet saved the story. Once it hit that internet, it just started going from person to person to person to person.
I will tell you, Director Deutsch, as a former Los Angeles police narcotics detective, that the agency has dealt drugs throughout this country for a long time.
Government involvement sterilizing people would come out. It has. Government involvement shipping drugs in would come out. It has. It came out in the 60s.
Celebrate the spirit of freedom and liberty upon which our nation was founded at InfoWarsShop.com. Molon Lave is ancient Greek for come and take it. This popular design combines both classic Greek Spartan imagery with modern M16 assault rifles. Now available in women's tees and proudly made in the USA. Celebrate the spirit of 1776 with the George Washington brass belt buckle or this incredibly sharp-looking 1776 hat. Badass. And be sure to check out the new arrivals at InfoWars Life, where you can prepare your body to perform at peak levels with Survival Shield, Nascent Iodine, Super Male Vitality, and Fluoride Shield. And wake up, America. Immune Support Blend is the healthy choice for the gourmet coffee lover. So get incredibly high-quality, freedom-based products and help fund the revolution at InfoWarsShop.com.
You are watching the Infowars Nightly News, which airs 7 p.m. Central at InfoWarsNews.com. Members can share their passcodes with up to 11 other people, and your support is helping us defend liberty worldwide.